Hello and welcome to another episode of Two Guys and a Chainsaw. I'm Todd.
And I'm Craig.
We have a very special day today. We are joined by not one, but two guest speakers.
For the first time ever, I think.
Yeah, it's really great. Kristen and Heather. Kristen and Heather, say hello to everyone else.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome to the show.
Kristen and Heather have both been with us multiple times, but we've never had them together. And for our last week of our horror comedy month, this is the one. Honestly, I think that this movie is the whole reason that I wanted to do this whole month. I love this movie so much. And Heather, when we were in the middle of the horror comedy, she's like, "Are you gonna do this movie?" And I was like, "Yeah." And Kristen was excited about it too. And I thought, I think we need to get both these ladies on here to talk about this movie because it's just so good.
For those people just joining us on the podcast in general who may not have heard some previous episodes, Kristen is Craig's sister. And I have to imagine that part of the reason you're on here is because you two have some memories watching this growing up. Am I right or am I wrong?
We watch it all the time.
All the time. And it was funny for me to, we haven't even said what movie it is, but it came out when I was 10 years old. So the first time I would have been viewing this, and many times thereafter, I was 10.
Oh, so now we're going to reveal something you might not want revealed, but we're doing 1992's Death Becomes Her.
Yeah, so exciting.
Yep.
It's super exciting. This came out, 92, I think.
You would have been early high school, late junior high, I guess?
Yeah, early high school. I think Jurassic Park came out around this time.
Jurassic Park came out a little bit after, and they used some of the effects that they developed in this movie, I think, on it.
Yeah, because I heard the writer also wrote Jurassic Park. Is that right?
Oh, yeah. David Koepp. Yeah, one of the writers. Yeah, David Koepp has written a lot of really well-loved movies. We did Stir of Echoes on here as well, and he wrote that. He wrote the Mission Impossible movie, the remake. Of course, he did Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which a lot of people don't like. But like a lot of Steven Spielberg films, War of the Worlds remake was his. He wrote the screenplay for Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. He did Panic Room, The Shadow, which, oh God, I like that movie so much, and we haven't talked about it much. And then Craig and I did Toy Soldiers. That was one of his first, among his first.
I used to make Kristen watch that a lot too.
Oh,
I
what
love
a great
that movie.
It's not a horror movie. It's like an action thriller movie, and we did it as a mini-sode for our patrons and posted that. Because we do that sometimes. Sometimes we just find non-horror stuff and we dive into it just because we love it. I'm threatening to do it for a Cloak and Dagger, but Craig tells me you guys didn't watch that growing up. Heather, did you see Cloak and Dagger?
I have not.
Huh. See? It's not just me.
All right. Well, You guys grew up with this movie. Heather, how about you? When did you first watch this?
Probably similar. I mean, it came out, like Kristen said, when we were 10. And I feel like I watched it. Like, I wouldn't have seen it in the theater, but I think it was a rental. And then I'm pretty for sure we owned it. And I watched it a lot because it's fantastic.
Well, I wanted to ask Craig because I feel like, was Meryl Streep also in that movie She-Devil with Roseanne Barr?
Yeah.
Okay. I think we had recorded this on a VHS, and it must have been some TV like double feature Meryl Streep, because I remember watching Death Becomes Her and She-Devil like back to back all the time. Do you remember that?
I don't remember it being on the same, but I think Death Becomes Her was on HBO a lot, but I don't remember. But I do remember watching both. She-Devil is a terrible movie, and I still just think it's absolutely hilarious. And it's interesting that Meryl Streep was, Meryl Streep is Meryl Streep, and she's been Meryl Streep for a long time.
That is profound, Craig. Hot tip from Craig today.
I guess that she's done throughout her career. She's done some comedies and things, but she's mostly known for being this highly regarded, well-respected, serious actress. And so this period in the early 90s, she was kind of doing some oddball comedies. And I think it's great because I think she's hilarious. What I remember about this movie, it came out like late junior high, probably for me. I didn't know I was gay at the time, but my enthusiasm about this movie should have been a big red flag. Like, I was so, the trailer, I think I just thought that Meryl Streep and Goldie Hawn were just like the best actresses that I knew, and I was huge fans of both of them, and they looked so beautiful and glamorous, and it's like fashion and hair, and plus it's all the horror gothic, big scary mansions, and the Tales from the Crypt music literally in the trailer, and I was like, I was so excited about it, and I wasn't disappointed at all. I loved it from the beginning, and I still watch it probably at least once a year. I quote it probably at least
once a day.
Maybe once a day. I was texting the girls last night and I said, I'm taking notes, but all I'm doing is writing down the lines that I say ad nauseum in my real life all the time.
I don't know how many times in my life, and especially when we were growing up as kids, we find some reason to be, you pushed me down the stairs.
Yeah. Yeah.
The minute you brought up Death Becomes Her, that just pops into my mind immediately. And I remember this being on television, probably because it was on HBO a lot, but they were making ofs of it. Because like you said earlier, this movie definitely was one of the earlier big effects films that incorporated the CGI. And Robert Zemeckis, who has always been a real innovator as far as using technology in films, he directed this. And it was huge. I mean, this guy at this time could do no wrong, and he kind of still can't. He did Romancing the Stone, which was this big romantic comedy in 1984. Then he came out with what may be one of the best movies in the entire world throughout history, which is Back to the Future in 1985. And then, went on to produce Amazing Stories. They did Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which combined the cell animation with live action. Then the other two Back to the Futures. I mean, and then boom, boom, boom. Here comes Death Becomes Her, and we're seeing him use computer-generated graphics for the first time in these ways that were really blowing us away. They were more limited, I think, than I remembered them being, and maybe that's a good thing, because there's a moment or two where it's a little distracting to me that how dated it is and how unnatural it is. We're just so used now to things being absolutely perfect that sometimes it's hard to go back.
They show their age a little bit. Yeah,
I remember as a kid, though, thinking that the effects were so cool and so good. Like everything to me, I remember the potion, thinking how beautiful that glowy potion was. And then when her neck was turned all the way around. And one of my favorites is just her boobs tightening up, which I listened to a different podcast episode about this movie once because I love the movie that much. And they talked about how to get that effect, they literally just had people push her boobs up.
Yeah.
from out of frame.
That's what it looks like.
Yeah.
I don't think that was computer effects on that one. And I was watching. I mean,
I'm sure you were.
But
for the research.
But there are, I mean, even in that scene, it's, this is kind of a fountain of youth kind of thing. We'll get into the plot here in a second. But even in that scene, it's not just, the boobs, the practical thing of the boobs just getting perky. That's cute and funny, really funny. But there is light and magic stuff going on her face. Like her face de-ages too. And for the time, I thought that those effects were really impressive.
To piggyback what Kristen was saying about the effects, you guys all know that I love special effects makeup. And so I know watching this when I was a kid, I was just floored with all of that. And I know that there was CGI and things like that involved, but the makeup itself, I just fell in love with. And Dick Smith was the makeup artist for this. And so in doing this podcast, I thought surely he would have won an Oscar for the makeup effects, but he didn't. The Oscar was for visual effects, but he won an Oscar for Amadeus. So
I also think that it's interesting. I don't know how this movie would fly now, because these women are supposed to be 50. They're really only, I think Goldie Hawn was 46 and Meryl Streep was 43. And the idea that these women would be perceived as old, even before their big transformation, just feels very not of this moment. Like, we've got women who are in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s who are still looking amazing and owning it. So I just think it's kind of interesting how the culture has shifted.
I have in my notes 50 exclamation mark, like you're ancient.
They've talked, I don't know if they've talked, there's been internet rumors of a remake of this with Kate Hudson and Anne Hathaway. And I'm sure it's just rumors. I'm sure it will never happen. But I think that would be great. I think Kate Hudson is much like her mom and very fun and funny, and that would be great. But I just don't know if the story would hold up. I don't know.
Except that I heard someone compare this to The Substance, which I still haven't seen, although I've listened to your episode on it. And so I think it's still a relevant topic in Hollywood in particular, you know, that women are aging out or not seen as sex symbols or whatever past a certain age. So I think that piece of the story still holds true.
And the movie embraces that angle. You know, it is very much about Hollywood and rich people and, you know, people who are in, you know, this is their job, is to look good. You know, you and I, we might have our own certain kinds of vanities. And of course, we all have our own insecurities and things. But if you're up there and your whole livelihood depends on people wanting to see you and how attractive are you, how much are you going to get cast in roles and things like the main character in this movie is Meryl Streep, then it lends a different angle to it that I think it would be interesting to see this from a position that's not that, you know, but you're right. We might not see it. It's safer to do this from a Hollywood angle, I think.
Yeah.
Then we don't offend anyone, you know?
Right.
Well, I think about that even in my daily life. Like, you know, Craig talk, we and Kristen, you used to perform, but like we still try to make it a point to do a show, you know, once a summer. And it is getting sad that the roles that are available for somebody in their early 40s it's getting slimmer, right? And so there is definitely, this is still very relevant, I think.
And these characters, I think it's easy to laugh at them because, first of all, they're so over the top, which is one of the things that I love about it. It's so melodramatic and it's hilarious. But they're the elite of the elite, apparently. I guess technically they don't have to be. We'll get to that. But
I don't know, judging from their houses.
Well, I know, but you know, the whole potion thing, when Meryl Streep asks how much it costs, Liesl says it's different for everybody. We find out later that Goldie Hawn has taken it too. Meryl Streep says, how much did it cost you? And she said, I gave everything I had, which was nothing. So like, I think it's more about seducing people, but then I think they become the elite because they're so gorgeous and beautiful or whatever. But there are so many things that I want to talk about. And the very first thing that I put on the movie and I'm sitting there and the score comes on and I'm like, I'm in love already. Like, the score is so good.
That was my first note too, Craig. Amazing score.
It's a big fixture in the movie. Like, it really establishes tone and it's spooky but campy and I love it. Then we cut to one of the millions of greatest scenes of the movie, which is Broadway 1978, where Madeline Ashton, played by Meryl Streep, is performing in a musical version of a Tennessee Williams play about an aging actress. And the audience is like walking out and trashing her and like, oh my God, her career is so dead and it's so over. And they're like getting up in the middle of her performance and walking out. I thought it was fantastic.
No.
I was going to say, as a 10-year-old, I'm sure there were lots of things that went over my head, but I just didn't understand that. I was like, there's sequins on her dress, there's lights, there's singing, there's dancing. What is not to like? Like, I was enthralled. I loved it.
And I do sing that song. I see me. It's a hit.
I think this is one of those things from the movie that hasn't really aged well, in that I think the comedy, and I had to kind of really think about it in order to get it, because I think the comedy of that whole dance sequence is that it's like a mashup. She starts out and sort of a modern thing, kind of goes to this 30s, 40s thing, then it becomes disco and whatever. And nowadays that just doesn't seem that weird to us anymore. Like, we're used to mashing up and inconsistency. And sometimes we do that on purpose, you know, and that's where the comedy comes from. So I was actually kind of surprised how, like, the same way I was like, I don't think anybody today would have walked out of that audience.
I loved it. Then I loved it now. It's great. And everybody, okay, so in the audience are Helen, who is Goldie Hawn, looking just absolutely stunning. But she's supposed to be mousy at this point. Like, she's the mousy one or whatever, okay? And her fiance is Dr. Ernest Minville, played by Bruce Willis, who is in his mid-early 30s during this movie too. And everybody hates the show and is walking out except for Ernest, who is just absolutely enthralled and like stands up and is clapping and cheering. And they go backstage because Madeline and Helen are friends from childhood, I guess.
I was unclear to
Seems like
me. There's probably a line in there I missed that explained it all, but I couldn't remember their relationship.
At least college. They've known each other for a very long time. And apparently were or have been very close, but it doesn't seem like they really like each other very much.
Yeah, there's a conversation later in the movie about when they were younger and you stole so-and-so from me and you were always trying to beat me, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, since childhood, I think.
But anyway, Madeline, before they come back, she's looking at herself in the mirror and she says, wrinkled, wrinkled little star, hope they never see the scars. And so she's self-conscious. I don't know what's her... Again, she looks great. There's nothing for her to be concerned about. She looks fantastic, but she's afraid she's aging. Ernest and Helen come back to visit, and Ernest is clearly smitten with Madeline from the beginning, and she is on him like a cougar, right from the beginning. It's super obvious that she's, and she's putting the moves on him because he's the famous Dr. Ernest Menville, the plastic surgeon.
Mm-hmm.
So that's of benefit to her too. And then we get a scene where Helen is talking to Ernest and it's like,
Ernest, you don't know Madeline the way I do. She wants you. She wants you because you're mine. I've lost men to her before. She just turns on that flash and that glitter and they're gone. That's why I wanted you to meet her before we got married, because I just had to see if you could pass the Madeline Ashton test. Please, please don't fail. I couldn't take it again.
I have absolutely no interest in Madeline Ashton.
Cut to his wedding with Madeline. So she steals him. I don't know. I'm trying to get the plot in there. What are the important parts?
Yeah. I will, to be honest with you, I didn't take many notes because after a while I was just kind of enjoying it and it was so madcap. And I thought I'm going to remember most of this stuff anyway.
I didn't need to. I mean, I remember it because Madeline steals her man, Helen loses her mind and
she becomes the crazy cat lady.
Again, we're so PC. I don't think that we would put a beautiful young actress in a big gross fat suit. I think any actress would probably take a lot of flack for that today. I still think it's funny. And Goldie Hawn is hilarious in the fat suit and out of it. But she's eating frosting out of the can. And it's
is that what that was? Okay.
Yeah,
That's one thing that when she opens her cupboards, it's just all different flavors of frosting. That's all the food she has in the house. And there were just little things like that just set the whole tone of the movie so that they have the freedom to just be silly
as crazy as they want to be.
Yeah.
The whole film is just heightened like that, isn't it? And it's set for that way from the outset, so they can get away with a lot without really caring about realism or anything like that. The whole movie, it feels like almost like a big comic book mixed with just a wacky I mean, every bit of this movie feels like a comic book, even in her house, where it's lit dramatically. She's being hit from dramatic angles. Nobody's apartment. Well, I mean, there are people with real hoarding problems, but, this apartment is clearly dressed up to be unrealistically crazy with the cats everywhere and these, things in there. And it gets more and more like that throughout the film, which is one thing I like about it. One thing I kind of think it sets it apart from most of the horror comedies we've done this month. It's just unabashedly so.
Uh-huh.
Not in a Mel Brooks way, just in a very stylish kind of way.
Yeah, and I really like it. I mean, this is a comedy first and foremost. There are horror elements. If you look on IMDb and you look at the descriptions, it says horror. It says body horror. I don't know that I would consider this body horror, but I guess kind of.
I guess the breaking of the neck and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, getting a big hole and
Well, if they did remake it, my gosh, they would have to add more of those elements in. You know what I mean?
But it's not played for gross, really, and it's not played for scary.
Well, I think it would still be a comedy. I think they would have to appease this generation and give it some more gore too, which would be totally different from what this one is.
It's funny, it's slapstick, it's Three Stooges type of stuff.
It's body horror the whole family can enjoy.
That's
Right,
right.
But even like it's at some point in the movie, and I'm not spoiling anything. This is iconic. It's on the poster. Goldie Hawn gets a big hole blown through her abdomen, but it's not like there's no blood, there's no guts. Like it's just a big black hole.
The pool fills with blood,
That's
which
true.
was really.
That's
I remember
true.
thinking that was really cool, but she's not like oozing intestines or anything like
No,
that. So it's-
missed opportunity, but okay. Yeah, although Meryl Streep's fall down the stairs is pretty brutal, even more brutal than I remembered it being.
Yes, I felt the exact same way. I don't know, because I guess I was watching it to talk about it. I was paying closer attention. I was like, dang, those effects were crazy. Like, she really is breaking.
Yeah.
Sounds-
all over the place.
The sound effects are pretty gross. The cracking, the crunching of her bones breaking as she falls down 1,000,000 stairs.
I
It's
was
pretty
honestly
gross.
a little surprised by that, to be honest. But what is the movie rated? Is it PG?
It's PG-13.
Mhm.
PG-13. Okay, yeah, that's PG-13. The whole inciting incident for that is that Meryl Streep. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff that happens.
Yeah, right. So they're in. Okay, so more time. Helen, big gross Helen, gets institutionalized, and she's fixated on every time they ask her in therapy. They're like, "Is there anything you want to talk about?" She's like, "Yes, I want to talk about Madeline Ashton," and all of the other patients like, "No!"
She makes the
that's
mental
all-
patients mental.
It's like that's all she ever talks about. And then she's in therapy, and her therapist says something to her like,
You have got to forget about her. You have to erase her from your mind. You have to completely eliminate any... What? You have to completely eliminate...
You're right.
What?
You're absolutely right.
Like, so she has to totally eliminate her. Cut to 7 years later, where we catch up with Madeline and Ernest, who are miserable. He's a big drunk. He can't even do surgery anymore because he has, like, the DTs. And so he does makeup for dead people.
Mortician.
And she-
Yeah.
A mortician. And she is just a washed up actress, doing her best to cling to her youth. And they're miserable. They hate each other. But they get invited to Helen's book party. And on the way there, another one of my favorite lines is they're just sitting there in the limo on complete opposite sides. And Madeline says to him, "Could you just not breathe?"
That's when my first note happened, and I said, Madeline is my inner monologue.
Yeah, that is so you.
Could you just not breathe? It's Alan too. Like, why are you breathing like that?
Yeah, she said something else right before that I thought that too. I can't remember what it was now. I should have written that down. But I feel like she says everything that she thinks. She just doesn't have a filter. But a lot of times, like, we think those mean things when we're irritated, but we certainly don't say them out loud. But she just says it all. She says it all out loud.
Oh, God, it's funny. At the book party, it turns out that Helen, there's this big reveal. Like, they think they see her from behind because there's this heavy woman that they think is her, but that heavy woman steps aside to reveal just like Jessica Rabbit style Goldie Hawn. She's got this long flowing red hair, just a red form-fitting dress, just a bright red lip. She just looks absolutely stunning. Her eyes, I don't know if that's her natural eye color or because she's normally a blonde, so I'm not used to seeing her with dark hair. And I think that the dark hair makes her eyes strikingly blue. They really pop. But I mean, she just looks amazing. And I remember people talking about this movie at the time, like, oh my God, she's 47. Look at her. Look how amazing she looks at 47. Well, like, that's just what 47 looks like these days, I feel like. Anyway, so Meryl Streep is, of course, she kind of wants to get out of there. She turns to leave, but Helen sees her, and they greet each other like they always do. I'll do one, you do the other one, Kristen. Mad!
Hell.
And it's
God,
so
you guys have a
fake,
whole
and they-
routine worked up, don't you?
And they hug each other, and
They clearly hate each other, and like Helen is already making eyes at Ernest over Madeline's shoulder and stuff. And another line that I use all the time, Helen's like,
Oh, gosh, I'm glad you came. I didn't know if you would. I spoke to my PR woman, and she said Madeline Ashton goes to the opening of an envelope. Oh, those people can be so cruel. I fired her. Well, I almost fired her.
I say so and so would come or would go to the opening of an envelope all the time. That's another.
Do you really?
Yes. They would go to an opening of an envelope. But there's a whole, okay, I don't know. I don't need to go through it line by line, but the plan is.
But you want to.
I could just say the
They're
whole thing.
so good.
Helen is scheming to get Ernest back. So she's, talking to Madeline saying, oh, it was never your fault. It was him. It was him. And then she talks to Ernest and she's like, it was never you. It was her. It's her. It's always been her.
But she's really scheming to get Ernest back because she wants to do Madeline dirty, right?
Yeah,
I never got the impression that that either of them gave a shit about Ernest.
No.
So here's something kind of interesting that I heard from that other podcast, because the other podcast I listened to was more about, I think it was writers. It's not a podcast I listen to all the time. It was literally just because it was this movie. But they said in the script, which they said many of the things are line for line in the movie, like it's a really close adaptation, but that it's kind of hinted at more often that Ernest may be closeted. And,
oh, really?
And so like he's really more in love with the glamour. And so whichever woman is sort of more appealing, he talks about the magic of women. Even they say it in his eulogy and different, like he's fascinated by the glitz and the glam and youth and beauty. Hearing that, I'd never really thought of it, but I feel like if you have that in your mind, you could kind of see that, because Helen doesn't even in the beginning really seem in love with him. They both just kind of seem like these people that were together because they should be. And then the women kind of fight over him. But you don't get the idea that anyone's in love with anyone in this movie. Like, it's not about love.
Well, not for them. I think that Ernest is, well, and of course, at the end, we find out that this is true. I think that he's probably a good guy. Both these women are just both toxic.
Yeah.
They only really care about themselves. I don't know. Or you want to side, I think, or at least I did. I wanted to side with Helen, because she's kind of the mousy one, and it is Madeline who is stealing her man away, and that's not nice. And so you want to side with her. But later, they talk, and they have history. And when they talk it all out, fight it all out, it's a big fight scene. It's a great... But the issue that comes out is that they were always jealous of each other. And Madeline felt like Helen thought that Madeline, wasn't good enough. Like her family thought that Madeline, was trash. And Helen says something like, we just weren't accustomed to having...
Trash in the house.
Trash in the house. Trash in the house. And so they talk it out, and as it turns out, they were hurting each other on purpose. You hurt me on purpose. And once they get down to their issues, then they realize that they really do love each other, and it was just all, a misunderstanding because they were jealous of each other. But by that point, they're both dead. Now, to get there...
I was going to say, we jumped to the end somehow.
Yeah. So now, Madeline now is scared that Helen is going to steal her man back. So she had gone to her plastic surgeon, and the plastic surgeon refused to do any more work because she was having so much work done, but then said, for a very elite group, there's this lady, I can give you her card. Her name's Liesl Von something or whatever. And so initially she doesn't go. She thinks it's just like a quack thing or whatever. But now that she's nervous about Helen, she goes. And I love this whole scene. Okay, so she pulls up to this castle, I guess, in LA. Like, it's this huge modern gothic.
It's gorgeous. It looks almost
amazing.
Like Batman's Bruce Wayne's manor from the outside. It's insane.
Yeah.
And I love this. It's done up so good. I don't think it's a big accident that Madeline's house is equally as huge, and it's just
amazing.
a giant mansion. The only difference is that Madeline's house is very Art Nouveau. And this one is a lot more like classic Gothic, I think.
Yeah.
In its style.
And there's always lightning, and it's always storming anytime we're outside, which I lived in LA. I
love it.
I lived in LA for 3 years. I don't think it rained one time when we lived there, but
oh yeah.
For this movie, it's storming every day.
So she meets with this, there are all these like manservants around and stuff, and like big like Dobermans like just prowling around, and it's amazing on the inside. Everything's like stone and it's fantastic, but she gets led into this like big parlor with the fireplace, and she's introduced to Liesl, played by Isabella Rossellini, who is also, she was in, I think she was 39 when this was filmed. And it's funny because she looks stunning. I mean, she's wearing next to nothing, virtually nude. She's got like a big bejeweled, it's a necklace that covers her nipples.
Somehow, and I was trying to figure it out, again, research for the film.
You're so gross. But
she looks fantastic. They talk about, she's like, I know why you're here. And she's, got this great European accent, and
this is life's ultimate cruelty. It offers us the taste of youth and vitality, and then makes us witness our own decay.
Well, it is the natural law.
Oh, screw the natural law!
And she says, how old would you guess I am? And Meryl Streep's initial response is my favorite response. That anytime, if anybody ever says, how old would you guess I am? I wouldn't. I would. Why would I do that? This is a no-win situation. But she says 38, and Liesl looks offended or whatever. It's kind of a funny in-joke considering that she really was 39 and looks amazing. But I'm 71 years old. And then she pulls out, what is it? She pulls out like a...
It's like a Fabergé. Yeah.
It is. Well, it's a box within which is another box that is closed with a dagger, within which is like a Fabergé egg, which has it's almost like a magician, doing a trick.
Right.
Undoes the ribbon on the top, and then that egg opens up, and inside is a vial. It's so funny. Handed down by this manservant, right? That's always behind her. And I didn't catch until later that her manservants' names were Tom, Dick, and Harry.
When I was little and she got to the house and she sat next to the manservant, I thought he looked like He-Man, and I thought that was cool how they incorporated him into this movie. And then I also really enjoyed that the potion is kept in a Fabergé egg. So
she sits on him more than on. It's so weird.
Well, I love that because he doesn't move at all, just like sit over that. But then it's Liesl who's like, what does she say? Like, make some damn room, or she like orders him to move.
I don't remember what
move your ass or something. I can't remember.
But then she turns around her chair and says, but keep your ass handy.
Okay.
But this is my favorite scene. Okay, so to entice her, she pokes Meryl Streep's finger with a dagger to draw blood, and I love that Meryl Streep goes, ow! What are you, nuts? It's so funny. And then she puts a little dab of the potion on there, and there's a great effect that shows her hands de-age. Like her liver spots disappear, her veins disappear, her skin smooths out, and then she holds up both hands and compares them, and then she says, how much? So Liesl writes a figure on a piece of paper, and she's like, yeah, I can't afford that or whatever. But I don't know, somehow she seduces her into it, right?
I don't
Well,
know.
He shows her the price first, and then she pricks her finger, and then she's
Okay.
That's right.
Then my favorite line is coming.
Yeah.
She writes her a check. And she goes, bottoms up, and she drinks it. And then Liesl goes, now a warning.
And then Madeline says, now! And it's just the best delivery of the line.
That's the one that I say on probably a weekly basis. Now a warning? It just seems like there's context for that in my life. A lot. So I use that one a lot. Yeah. But
I also have in my notes how cute checks are, because clearly it was a large amount. And she just writes the checks and hands it to her. And she's not even going to cash it first. She's like, here's the potion.
A lot of trust there. Checks. That's another thing we don't have anymore. Does anybody write checks?
I do.
Oh my
for
God.
bills. Just for bills.
You guys.
But yeah, now it would be like, I'll Venmo you.
Yeah, right.
You take Apple Pay.
The warning is she just says, be good to your body. You're going to be in it for a long time. And the rules, and I don't remember if she explained the rules before or after she took it.
After.
Yeah, which is shady. She's like, you can, live your life publicly up until
She just says 10 years, I think.
Is it 10 years?
Yeah,
man.
because she's supposed to be 50. And so I think she thinks past 60, it would be a little weird that you still look this age. It was a short amount of time, I feel like.
I know. And that's. I probably never thought about it when I was a kid, and it's not like it's, deep or anything, but that would totally change the deal. Like, why would I want to live forever if I can't enjoy it? I mean, I guess they continue to enjoy it. They have their own little private elite, society or whatever with Elvis and James Dean and
Marilyn Monroe.
All these jokes. Yeah.
Zsa Zsa Gabor.
I had to explain to Liz, because I watched it with Liz, and she saw it for the first time. I had to explain to her, there was this moment, I think, in the late 80s where people were convinced that Elvis had faked his death and was still alive. And there was a book about it, and a woman who claimed she had recordings of him, from her answering machine or something like that was handed out with the book and all this stuff. Like all those things, like, they're jokes that for not putting the actual number on the check, that she shows her, and for kind of keeping that secret to keep the movie a little more timeless. It's funny how they really inserted these jokes that, like Zsa Zsa, Marilyn Monroe, okay, James Dean, okay, like
Andy Warhol.
Those people, okay, they're pretty timeless, I suppose. Like probably in 50 years, we might still know who those people are. But isn't Jim Morrison? Is he the guy in the pool later?
At the pool,
I had to think about it hard. I was like, I think that's supposed to be Jim Morrison, but I'm not sure. I'd have to explain that to people. I
think I'm right about the Zsa Zsa Gabor one, because when she's like, you can stage your own death, or you can retire, or just go away, or whatever. And she says, or as one of my clients says, I want to be alone. And I think that's a Zsa Zsa Gabor reference, right? Because didn't Zsa Zsa Gabor become like a recluse in her later life?
I think.
That was my first.
Those things as a kid. It was like I saw Marilyn Monroe, which I probably mostly knew because she was wearing the outfit from like the Madonna Material Girl video. So I like got that reference, and I think Elvis. But all the other people as a 10-year-old, I didn't.
I wouldn't have gotten Andy Warhol as a 10-year-old. Let's put it that way.
No, definitely not.
But instantly this time around. So
well, and here's the great, scene. She walks away, and before she leaves, Meryl Streep does, before she leaves the house, she stops and looks in a full-length mirror. And at first she's disappointed because she doesn't really see much change. But then all the change happens before her eyes. Her boobs perk up, her ass perks up, her face glows, her hair softens. I mean, it's great effects, and she looks amazing, and she's a beautiful woman anyway. So now she's all confident, and she goes back home. She doesn't know that Helen has been at her house all this time convincing Ernest that they have to kill her. And I love the fantasy sequence where Helen explains how they're going to kill her. I forgot how funny that is. She's like, so I'll call and I'll get her to invite me over. And you see Meryl Streep pick up the phone and say, fine, why don't you come for dinner?
And also in this montage, Bruce Willis is like carrying this big candelabra with candles as if they don't have electricity in their house.
I didn't even notice that. That's so funny. So they're playing, and then they're gonna drug her and finish dinner, and then put her in a car and send it over a cliff, and there'll be no trace, and then they can live happily ever after. Meryl Streep gets home. Helen sneaks out right before she gets there. She's all feeling herself, so she goes and puts on this bodysuit, the black bodysuit that Kristen is modeling for us now.
Oh my gosh, you guys! When I popped on this, so we all decided we were going to do this. You obviously can't see it, but we decided that in order to make sure that we're not stepping all over each other, we were going to do this as a video call, and that's how we're recording it. And I popped on to see Craig dressed as the spitting image of Bruce Willis. Kristen here has this makeup on her neck to look twisted, and Heather's skin is completely peeling off her face and neck. It was funny. You guys go all out. You guys
we took pictures. We'll send some pictures. Maybe you can put them on the website.
If I had known, I would have been on here in my Isabella Rossellini outfit. But
that would have.
You didn't tell me. You didn't tell me
to do that. No, I said we should surprise Todd. It would be a cute, funny surprise for Todd.
It's a riot, and I can't stop staring at your neck this entire time, Chris. It looks
I'm so glad.
Good.
I've never been great at the stage makeup, so Heather's peeling paint. I was like, damn it. I knew she'd go all out, but I think I did okay.
It's fantastic.
You both look great.
Your neck is amazing.
It really is, isn't it? Your neck's never looked better, Kristen.
Well, I couldn't quite do the like head turn fully around and say, my ass, I can see my ass. Yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah, I was just going to say it was funny to me. Well, first of all, I love that she puts on this thing that, is really fitted to her body so that when these effects come up later, it enhances it even more. I really like that. It also just highlights that she looks amazing. Her body, she does have the body of a young woman. I don't think that it had ever occurred to me that she takes this potion and dies like a half an hour later.
Same day.
Yeah, doesn't get to enjoy it very long.
But she doesn't get to enjoy it at all. She doesn't even get to go out. Like, she was going to go out, but she meets Ernest at the top of the stairs, and they argue, and they just start throwing insults at each other, and it's just very catty and mean. And they're clearly just trying to hurt each other's feelings, and he calls her cheap, which is the thing that hurts her the most. But she calls him a tragic, boozy, flaccid clown.
I can't even do that with my Oh gosh, she's brilliant. I just love her.
She is so funny. Like, I think we think of Meryl Streep as being very classy. And so when she plays this kind of crude off, it just is so funny. She just goes for it, which shouldn't be a surprise. She's a brilliant actress. She can do anything. It's fun to see her in a role like this.
Because when I was thinking about it, I was thinking, I can't believe like Bruce Willis, Goldie Hawn, and Meryl Streep did this movie. Those are really, really good actors. But I heard that like she had been doing a lot of really serious kind of Oscar type, which, by the way, did you know this movie does have an Oscar?
Yeah, for effects.
I think it's for effects. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, she wanted to do something really different and fun. Like she just was ready for something fun. And you could tell she had so much fun.
Oh, gosh. It looks like they all had a lot of fun, especially the two lead women. Bruce Willis is kind of the, I don't know,
You feel sorry for him.
Oh, yeah, I feel sorry for him. But he's just a victim of circumstance.
Yeah.
Pretty much. And he's a sad sack and all that kind of stuff. But I do want to say that I think Bruce Willis puts in a great performance, too. You do feel bad. You feel bad for him. I mean, he's kind of a dope. He's definitely a dope, but...
Well, we often forget, like, Bruce Willis came out of comedy. He was doing moonlighting on TV when he got his role in Die Hard. And for a while, everyone was afraid Die Hard was going to fail because nobody would take him seriously as an action star because he's such a comedy guy. That solely changed everything. And apparently Bruce Willis like doing comedy so much that he showed up at like 5 a.m. on the set on the first day of doing this just because he was so excited to get back in and be shooting a comedy again. So
I can only imagine how fun this was. They fight and fight and fight, and eventually he grabs her by the throat and holds her at the top of the stairs, like leaning back over the stairs. She is kind of begging, please, and eventually he lets go of her neck, like, what am I doing? But she's still standing there, like, wobbling on... I mean, it's ridiculous. She's at an angle that there's no way that she could still be standing there. She's like, help, help, help. But then she makes the mistake of getting mean. And what does she say? Something like, help me, you idiot. So instead of helping her, he just... with one finger pushes her and she goes down the stairs. Now, this is a big, winding marble staircase. And I don't have any idea. I didn't read anything about how they did this. And like you guys said before, a lot of it is in the sound. Because it's a lot you just hear bones just snapping as she tumbles down the stairs. Whatever kind of dummy they used and however they shot it, it looked really good and painful.
There were a couple close-ups of like her head and her neck just bent in really disturbing ways that were
getting whacked. Ugh.
Really make you cringe as she's going down. And then the pile of her at the end really seals the deal.
Her limbs are just completely akimbo in directions that they should never be.
I think the movie's really smart in that it's kind of been setting us up all along not to take all this too seriously. So even when this does come up, you're not too grossed out by it. It's still... I mean, I love the production design of this film, and sort of like Kristen said earlier, Bruce Willis is walking around with a candelabra when he doesn't need to. There's thunder and lightning coming through. It's just like a big cartoon. And it really, I think, pays homage to one of Robert Zemeckis' big inspirations is Tales from the Crypt. I mean, he co-created the movie series, but we talk about the comics and stuff, that came from that on here constantly. This was originally apparently supposed to be a sequel to like a Tales from the Crypt movie that he wanted to do. And you can totally tell, and you can totally tell in the kind of movie it is. Like these Tales from the Crypt comics, if you read them, every other story involves some kind of version of this monkey's paw type situation where somebody does some devil's bargain and then it turns out really, really wrong because, you know, they didn't take care of themselves or some accident happened and the tables turn. And this is so in line with that by this time I'm just really into this movie. And I think, again, we've been set up for it this whole time. Like we all kind of know what kind of movie this is going to be. It's not going to surprise us with any ironic twists. It's not going to mess with us tonally, you know, where it suddenly becomes scary at the end or something like that. You know, it's just funny throughout. And that's, I think, what kind of keeps it family friendly is the fact that from beginning to end, it's the same kind of movie, even in this incredible violence, you know, at this moment. The staircase she's tumbling down is not your home staircase. It is this huge, long. Some of the comedy comes from the fact that the staircase is just so long and her fall so long down it. You kind of can't help but laugh after you're done grimacing.
This summer, I get to go to New York and I get to see Death Becomes Her. It's a new Broadway musical. And I'm super, super stoked because I've been doing research and seeing reels and all this stuff. And the staircase scene on Broadway, they've built this entire like neoprene staircase. And at the top of the stairs, Madeline gets switched out with like this acrobat gymnast who does a slow motion fall down the stairs. So they're holding onto the rails and contorting and twisting their legs. That sequence alone has 45 cues in it. So by the end of it, they can fall and they can twist their body to replicate how she looks at the end of the staircase. And I'm probably going to cry because I'm going to be so excited.
That's amazing.
That's amazing.
Wild. It's wild. You can watch that scene on YouTube. It's impressive. It's a lot. Like, it suggests to me that the stage play is going to take the cue of the movie and really just play up the melodrama. It's really going to go for the physical comedy, and I'm very envious that you get to see that. Is the original cast still, like, is Megan Hilty still in it?
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. And I might get to meet her, and I'm super excited about that.
Oh my
too.
gosh. Wow.
Okay, so Ernest thinks she's dead, so he goes and calls Helen, and he's like, she's dead! And I love Helen's like, exactly what part of the plan didn't you understand, Ernest? And she's like, did you call the police? And he's like, no, I called you first. Don't you think the police might think it's a little odd that you called me before you called them? So she comes over. Meanwhile, in the background, well, they're on the phone. In the background, we see Madeline very awkwardly get up, and she's all broken and twisted, but she gets up and she starts walking towards him, and when he gets off the phone and turns around, she's standing there. That's then Todd's favorite line.
Ernest! Ernest! You pushed me down the stairs.
I think that was in the trailer a lot. That must be. Yeah, right.
I watched the trailer today, and half of it is not in the movie.
Isn't in the movie. I know. I think they filmed a few different things that ended up getting cut, but it was so interesting that it was in the trailer and then it wasn't in the movie. There was something about putting her in the freezer. I did that too, and I was like, what? Is there an extended cut that I haven't seen?
Tracy Ullman apparently played her agent, right? And she was completely cut out of it.
Cut out completely. They completely changed the ending, which we'll get to. And I've heard that the play, it blends the cinematic ending with one of the original endings, a little bit a sweeter note that it ends on. But anyway, okay, so they just argue, and she doesn't realize what's happened, really. It's just a lot of physical comedy, which is great. Her just kind of stumbling around because her head is on backwards. She's trying to walk, but she can't really figure it out. And she's bumping into things and knocking things over.
And when they're trying to figure out what's wrong, they just conclude that it's shock. Yep, could be shock.
I know. I love it when we already said when she says, I can see my ass. And I just love his delivery of, and I think there's something kind of wrong with your neck or whatever he says. Her head is completely backwards. The way he plays everything too, just it's so melodramatic, but you can also picture yourself in that scene where like she's dead. I know she's got to be dead. Her head isn't on the right way. And yet here she is in front of me, talking
Medical
to me.
miracle.
Yes, she's a medical marvel.
This is the part of the movie that for me didn't age as well. Now, it's kind of helped by the fact that a person who's walking backwards is awkward anyway, but somehow when the CGI face was mixed with her and I don't know, the movement of it, it's all, I mean, I think they had to do this in 2 runs, you know, she had to do it once forward or in front of a green screen with just her face, and then she had to do it again backwards. Meryl Streep hated it. She said doing this movie was like going to the dentist. She didn't like all the effects stuff that she had to do, and I don't know if she's done much effects stuff since then. It's actually fine, but it just, didn't age as well as I think most of the other effects in the movie did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I get it. I mean, it shows its seams. That's totally fair. I still think it's really funny to watch, and she twists her own head so that she's facing the right way again. And then they take her to the hospital, which is a really funny scene. And the doctor is like bending her hand like all the way back to her arm. And he's like, you're telling me this doesn't hurt? She's like, I said it doesn't hurt. Like nothing hurts. But she still hasn't figured out that she's dead until Ernest says, you're in violation of every natural law. And she goes, what? I'm in violation of what? Because that was what she and Liesl had talked about, and then she realizes she's dead. She passes out. They put her in the morgue. Eventually, they get her back home. Ernest thinks it's a miracle, and it's a sign that they're meant to be together. Obviously, she knows otherwise, but she needs Ernest's help. So he spray paints her all up. We don't really see, he's not quite finished. He's spray painting, he's doing her makeup on her face. He goes downstairs to get something, and Helen arrives with shovels so that they can take Madeline's dead body out into the valley to bury it. And Ernest is like, she's not quite ready to be buried yet. and she's like, Ernest, you're not doing anything funny with Madeline's body, are you?
Oh my God.
Which
that was so weird.
Madeline just comes downstairs looking all beautiful. And so then she's there all of a sudden.
Yeah, and she kind of confronts her and she's like, what are you two scheming about? Or should I say, what else? Because she overheard, Helen was saying, the plan was to kill her and now she's dead and blah, blah, blah. So she knows now. She didn't know before, but she knows now that they were scheming against her. And then she just walks away into the other room. And Bruce Willis is like, Helen, I think you better leave. This is not going to be good. And Meryl Streep has passed through the room with all the guns in it.
It's just a room full of guns.
And alcohol.
And he sees her walk back towards Goldie Hawn, and then they exchange words. I don't even remember what they say, but she takes the shotgun and shoots at point blank Goldie Hawn in the abdomen, and Goldie Hawn flies through the air and lands in the pool, and the pool just fills with blood. Of course, the big reveal is that she's not dead either. She gets up. I love her dead look. Her eyes look even icier than before. Her skin is pale because she doesn't have any blood. And she's got that big hole in her stomach.
And I love that all the pool water, just like when she stands up, falls out of her stomach.
Yeah, just pours out.
And then, so she's got this huge hole, which was at the time such a cool effect. And then another favorite line, look at me, I'm soaking wet. Like that.
And then
like
Ernest
that's the problem.
I think Ernest says, and there seems to be something wrong with your blouse.
Yeah, your blouse or your stomach, yeah.
And she looks and she sees that she's got the big hole. And Meryl Streep is like, hey, what's going on? And she walks up to her and she looks at her lapel and she finds the pin. Goldie Hawn has been wearing that pin the whole movie. I had never noticed. I don't know that I had noticed that before.
Wow.
In the book, not the whole movie, but at the book party, she is wearing Liesl's pin. We just hadn't seen it before.
Which I did put in my notes. Is it like you had to sign a contract to wear that pin? Because for something so exclusive, that's not very discreet. To just be like walking around with this pin. But I think that's because in the original script, Helen hasn't taken the potion. There was something about how they changed that piece. I don't know.
Really?
Like she had just gotten very thin and like done this makeover. I could have that wrong, but that's how I understood it when I was reading about that part.
Yeah, I didn't read that.
So that may be how the movie. I don't know. It's different and changed that. But yeah, I just thought that's interesting. But I remember us going back to see if she had been wearing the pin the whole time or if they were just like threw that in at the end.
Slipping that in.
Was.
No, she
Wow.
was wearing it.
So they figure it out, and so then they fight, and they have a big fight. They're hitting each other with shovels. Like Meryl Streep's head gets both knocked clear back, so it's just hanging. You know, her neck stretches out and her head is just hanging at her back. There's another time Helen hits her, you know, on the top of the head, and so her head like goes down into her body. And at one point, you know, like they're like fencing with these swords.
And when they get the shovels, this is my favorite line. Goldie Hawn turns to Meryl Streep and says, "On guard, bitch."
The choreography didn't look that great, frankly, when they were hitting I was like, why are you just banging like, that's not how people fight. You don't just bang shovels together.
Yeah, it looked like a fake sword fight. Yeah.
It might be how they fight.
Maybe.
Or you could say it was an artistic choice that kind of, with the whole cartoonish atmosphere, you know, style of the whole movie, that their fight wasn't.
And I just love the attention to detail here, too, when they're fighting, because you see them fighting in silhouette, and you see Goldie Hawn's, you know, hole in her stomach in the silhouette, and it was just a nice touch.
I guess Goldie Hawn got hurt shooting this scene. Meryl Streep hit her in the face with a shovel, and she had a scar. But anyway, whatever. That's not even the fun stuff. The fun stuff is like when one of the shovel breaks and Meryl Streep takes it like a javelin and throws it, and it goes right through Helen's the hole, and Meryl Streep goes, "Yes, no, damn." And then they have the whole big heart-to-heart, "you hurt me on purpose" thing, which, again, it's played for the comedy, but it's funny to see them, like, it's supposed to be their tough veneers like falling away and them, you know, sharing real emotion and being honest with each other, which they never have been before. And when they can both admit that they were jealous of one another and that they did do things intentionally to hurt one another, and they both apologize, then they're like, we're besties again.
And we're beautiful except for our neck and stomach problems.
Right. That's when they realize that they need Ernest. They're like, let's have Ernest fix us up. And he does. But he's leaving. He's packing his stuff. He is out of here, which is the smartest decision that he has made in this entire movie.
The only decision he's really made in the whole movie.
Yeah.
But they're like, "No, can you just fix us up, please, please, please?" And he's like, "Fine, I'll do it, but on the condition that once it's done, I leave and I never have to see you again." And they're like, "Oh yeah, sure, that's fine, whatever." And so then he fixes them up, and they do look amazing. Like they do kind of look like they are covered head to toe in paint or makeup, but it looks great. They're admiring themselves, but then a little piece peels off of Goldie Hawn, and Meryl Streep makes it worse. She like peels it down, and she's like, "Oh no, what are we gonna do?" And they realize that they're gonna need Ernest forever to keep them looking that way. So their plan is they got to get him to take the potion, but he is not interested. He just wants to leave. So they have to knock him out, and then they take him to Liesl's, and he wakes up in a tuxedo in Liesl's, you know, pool hall where she's swimming naked and comes out. And then she seduces him. And I'm sure that I noticed it before, but in preparing to talk about it, I just thought it was really interesting. She offers him the potion. There's no discussion of cost. I think the reason is he could be very valuable to them. Surely Meryl Streep and Goldie Hawn are not the only two people who have met with some misfortune who now could probably use a little bit of help aesthetically. At least that's what I'm guessing.
And also, she doesn't want the secret out. That, you know, because now he kind of, well, I guess he doesn't really know, but he has seen, you know, these two women who should clearly be dead. So they kind of also need to keep it a secret. He's not interested.
And she does the hand trick on him, and he's impressed. And she's like, "Think of all the people that you could help," or something. I don't remember. Or no. It's not even like that. It's about being selfish. It's like, all your life you've been helping other people. You should live for yourself. You sacrificed your own youth. You should get to enjoy it, blah, blah, blah. And he's very tempted, and he starts to drink it, and she's getting increasingly excited. And she does her big "Siempre viva," which she always does when they drink it. "Siempre viva, live forever." And that stops him. And he goes, "Wait a second, live forever?" Then what?
No thanks.
What if I get bored?
Yeah. What if I get bored? What if I get lonely? And she's like, but you'll never get old and you'll never die. And he's like, yeah, but everybody else will. Like, I'll just have to watch everybody else I love, get old and die. That sounds terrible. So he doesn't want to take the potion, but he also says, you people have to be stopped. And he takes the potion and he runs. And so she says, Dick, Tom, Harry, and sends the men servants after him.
If I can just say that every single time I watch this movie, this is the part where I take a little nap. I fall asleep at this whole Ernest getting out of here.
So did I.
Every time I fall asleep. And so I kept like waking up thinking, oh, I got to keep my eyes open because I'm watching this for the podcast. I'm like, no, I don't. I'll just wake up where I always wake up.
Even now, huh?
It just gets a little like
long
and like, we get it. He's going to get out there.
That's how I felt when I was a kid. When I was going back to watch this time, I thought, okay, like I remember this being pretty long and it got kind of like extended, toward the end and whatnot. And then I looked at it, I was like, oh, it's only an hour and 42 minutes. So it's not that long. Huh, okay, maybe just when I was a kid. And then I remembered this whole sequence of him running away and I thought, oh God, we've got at least another 30 minutes of this. And it's actually kind of short.
So it's a cat nap, I take. But like we know what's happening and it's not totally necessary to go on. And then, if you wake up when he falls in the pool,
right,
you're good.
Right. He gets chased around. He gets chased through that party. There's all these, they're not cameos because they're actors, but there's all these famous people cameos, famous dead people or whatever. And he ends up for drama, I guess, on the roof of this castle, and the women are trying to chase him down too, and they end up there, and he slips off the roof and ends up hanging by his suspenders on like a gutter pipe or something. And they're like, take the potion, it's the only way you'll survive if you fall. And he's going to fall, but he says no, he doesn't take it. He drops it.
You know why I think this part bored me as a kid and why it made the movie felt long even to me as an adult is that I think that this sort of succumbs to this trend, and especially true in kids movies and in cartoons in particular. I don't know where it came from, but I started to recognize this where everything has to be turned into an action sequence at some point. Like every movie suddenly has to have a grand chase scene in it, and it's like this movie didn't really need that. And so this whole bit of him climbing out onto just to get away and we don't see him again, he might as well have just refused the potion, run out of there, and the same result. Like nothing really changes.
No, but that would be boring.
We get a bunch of gags and we get the excitement of an action sequence. It's the same thing with Robert Zemeckis. I think feelings are mixed about his Image Movers movies, Polar Express and all that. But I'm actually a really big fan of the Jim Carrey Christmas Carol.
Oh, Christmas Carol.
That animated Christmas Carol. I really like that one. But similarly, and again, it's another Robert Zemeckis movie, for some reason, toward the end, he throws in this huge chase scene.
Yeah.
It's so out of place. It's like going across the rooftops and all this stuff. And it's like, wait, when did Christmas Carol become an action movie? And I feel like this is exactly the same thing.
Yeah. That's interesting because in action movies, even in those sequences, I always fall asleep.
Oh, me too.
And my husband Xander is like, you always fall asleep at the most exciting part. I'm like, it is not exciting to me to watch 15 cars blow up. Like
they become long and drawn out. I'm sorry, maybe this is going to be another old man thing, but I think when stunts were more difficult and they were more impressive, and you couldn't just cover everything with a computer and do everything real easily, they were parceled out. There'd be an action sequence that would be cool, and you'd be amazed that this car blew up and flipped in the air. Now you don't give a shit. 15 cars are flipping and blowing up in the air, and that'll be 20 minutes long. It's annoying.
And, like going back to this movie too in particular, like we don't really care all that much about Ernest. Like Ernest is such kind of a boring character. He's there to serve the women, and so it's kind of like get back to them, they're funnier,
right?
He did a great job playing Ernest. That's Ernest.
Right.
And so I think that too makes it get a little long.
One could argue the main purpose of this sequence is to show that he's actually really, really serious about not taking that, because he chooses death over taking the potion. and he just gets spared from it.
Right, but he doesn't die because he falls into the pool. I mean, he probably would have died anyway, crashing through that big stained glass thing, but whatever. He walks away unscathed.
Yeah.
That's another, I think, probably a line that I love with the either Tom, Dick, or Harry. He's like getting in the pool with this naked lady, and he's like, "That was pretty neat." He just like falls.
That was Jim Morrison. Or
Yeah.
I think Kristen just said something about Bruce Willis doing a good job. And I would just to comment on that, I agree. I think it's really crazy that he even took a role like this in the midst of like Die Hard fame to play like the complete opposite of that. And even opposite of his character in like the romantic comedies. Like he plays just a super bump. And I think that just speaks to him as a actor, you know, like I don't care what, I'm just going to take all the fun roles to try it out. And I think that was cool.
Yeah, he's good. Like I said, he walks away and they realize that they're peeling and they know that they're going to have Meryl Streep says, you know what this is? This is upkeep. We can do this. And they say, I'll paint your ass and you paint my ass. and Helen's like, who would have thought you and me painting each other's asses together forever? And they kind of laugh like, and then it jumps to 37 years later. And this entire ending was reshot because they shot a different ending that test audiences didn't like at all. Ernest's funeral. And we see that he has gone on through his eulogy. We hear that he has gone on to live a very full and happy life. Had kids, grandkids, traveled, service, all this stuff. I don't think that the movie's trying to beat us over the head with any kind of message, but I think that it was about, enjoy your life. It's a reward to get old and all that kind of stuff. But there are two black, all in black veiled figures at the very, very back of the church. And it's, of course, the ladies. And they're scoffing at things that the priest says, and they're laughing out loud reading his funeral program or whatever. They get up to leave, and the priest says, and who can forget all of his stories about the living dead walking around Los Angeles? And he found the secret to eternal life, and that stops them in their tracks. And they turn around and they're like, the secret to eternal life, I don't remember what it is. It's something very cliched. It's about the people that love you and leaving behind a legacy or whatever. And then Meryl Streep uses the line that I say probably on a daily basis, blah, 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 blah. I swear to God, I say that all the time. Anytime somebody's just going on and on about something and blah, blah.
So Todd should start doing that to you, is what you're saying.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
all the time.
But they walk out and they're veiled, but they pull their veils up and they look. Their makeup is bad. It's a very amateurish attempt to cover up whatever is underneath there, and their limbs don't really work right. And they end up at the top of a set of concrete stairs. And they've lost their spray paint, and we see the spray paint can right there, and they're arguing about losing things. Helen loses her balance at the top of the stairs, and Meryl Streep is not going to help her, so she just grabs Meryl Streep and pulls her down too, and they both go down, and their bodies just completely shatter, and we cut to the base of the stairs in close-up, where Meryl Streep's head is just sitting there. And then we hear something, and Goldie Hawn's head rolls into frame, and Goldie Hawn's head just says, "Do you remember where you parked the car?"
What was the original ending? Do you know?
I think I know. At least I sort of know, at least the concept that Ernest, it's kind of like the eulogy. It's a little bit like that, but it's more like you get to see that play out. Like he gets married and he's with a woman, his wife, and they're old, and they're just sort of reflecting on like their life together and how, his life began when he met her. So like at 50 or whatever he was. So it's just kind of this sweet thing about them together. And I guess they like held hands. They took hands, and you see his old age spot hand and her old hand, but then he puts his other hand there, and it's like young because he, that was the hand
he did the one thing
that was tested. But it's kind of the same thing that we get from the eulogy, but it's like a more sweet, less comedy ending, and just kind of more focused on him instead of them. I think.
I think that they were somehow still, and maybe because what you just said, that's what I heard. I heard that they are somehow incorporating that into the stage show. And I think and I could be just totally making this up, but I thought that I remembered the women who are, gross now in their makeup and stuff, they see Ernest and this other woman, and I don't know if it's supposed to be like some sort of revelation to them, if they're supposed to learn something from it, or if they're still cynical about it or whatever, but I do think that they see that he's happy. Anyway, we talked so long about this movie, but I'm not surprised because, and we haven't done it justice. I say this all the time, especially with these comedies. Me telling you how it's funny doesn't do enough. I can't tell you how funny it is. You have to watch it. And if you're just a real diehard horror fan and you're not, comedy's not so much your thing, I don't know if you'll like it because it's a comedy. First and foremost, there are horror elements. I would say the thing that makes it most horror to me is the atmosphere and the setting, even more so than the body stuff. That to me makes it feel more like a horror movie. But I absolutely love it. I think the performances in it are phenomenal. I'm just a big fan of both of the lead actresses. I'm a fan of Bruce Willis too, and it's really nice to see him young and healthy. He's struggling with his wellness now and isn't in good shape, and we won't, I don't think, see him on screen anymore, but he is a really cool guy, was and is a really cool guy. So it's nice to see him get to, like Heather said, to get to do something atypical of what we usually see him do. So that was nice. But I don't know, just super fun, tons of quotable lines that I'll shut up and let you guys give your final thoughts.
I think you said it well. So I ended up actually buying this movie to add to my collection because I was like, well, maybe I'll want to watch this again. And then after I spent however much money I spent on it, I was like, I don't know if I need to buy it. I probably could have rented it and rented it. But not to say I love this movie, but I don't know, like, if you've never seen it, if now in 2025 you would be like, yeah, that's great. I don't know. I'll be interested probably around Halloween time. I'll make my daughter watch it with me and I'll see if she thinks it's funny. But I know my husband and I have been showing them like movies that we remembered as so funny lately, and they're like, what is this? Like, one, they just don't translate to a younger generation. So it'll be interesting. I'll show it to her and I'll see what she thinks. I just think that those women are brilliant in this, and she did like Goldie Hawn and Overboard. We watched that, and she thought that was funny. So maybe she will at least like the characters and their deliveries. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what someone who's never seen it and is now in 2025 would think of it.
Heather, have your kids seen this?
No, they haven't yet. I think my oldest would love it, but it's so funny because when I was renting this, I noticed that it was categorized as body horror, and we just didn't have that genre, I think, back when it came out, right? So like that wasn't even a thought in my mind that it would be classified as body horror, and of course it is. But really, the movie itself is so tame, right? A few curse words, a few things, but it is a fun romp, and it's no wonder I love all this weird spooky makeup stuff because I was so young when this came out, and I'm sure it made an impression on me because it's just so good.
Yeah, it's very, very campy.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Campy, over the top. And you know, Kristen, when you said Halloween, yeah, this is like a Halloween movie, really, almost through and through. I mean, it doesn't have anything to do with Halloween, but it's appropriate for the season, 100%. So yeah, I could see that maybe being a sort of a family Halloween staple, maybe, because unless you're really sensitive about partial nudity or maybe the more, her falling down the stairs and the F-bomb. I think there's an F-bomb or two in here.
There can't be more than one.
You think? Because it's PG-13, so there can't be.
There's
many.
one, but
is there? I can't remember.
I thought there was two, but
you're allowed one for PG-13, but that's it.
But the partial nudity, the things our kids see and wear, like,
probably. different
gonna
now.
bug them.
Hey, it
What?
scandalized me when I was a teenager watching this. I mean, you
That's
see
funny.
Isabella Rossellini from the back,
Yeah.
just fully nude.
You see that, and you
Or
see
her
that
body
right.
double.
Yeah.
Her body double. Yeah.
He doesn't care who it is.
I really don't give a shit. Who would? Come on. Let's be honest.
You can still pretend it's Isabella Rossellini if you want.
The movie's pretending. That's good enough for me. You can see, if you want to see Isabella Rossellini, without clothes on, you can watch Blue Velvet. There's no body double in that one. Anyway,
Okay,
now I sound like the creep. Thanks a lot, guys.
For all the creepers out there.
Well, thank you, ladies, for joining us. All right, Todd, take us out.
Thank you guys so much for joining. Just like Craig said, thank you guys so much for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please share it with a friend. You can find us online just by going to chainsawhorror.com. We got a brand spanking new website, kind of in the vein of Tales from the Crypt comics. That was intentional. So if you're in the mood for that, go there and check it out. Please click on our newsletter link to join and see our newsletter. We send out every week, just talking about the movies that we've done, the movies that are coming up, and some horror news that's happening and what's going on with our patrons. You can also send us a voice message by clicking Talk to Us. You don't need any special software. Just all you need is your phone or your browser. Record up to 90-second message, and it'll go right to us. Until next time, I am Todd.
And I'm Craig.
And I'm the little sister, Kristen.
And I'm Heather.
With 2 guys, 2 gals, and a chainsaw.